Thank you to all of our panelists tonight for your insightful thoughts. Right now, we've come to the Q&A portion of our evening. If you have a question, please raise your hand and wait for a microphone to be given to you to ask your question. We want to make sure that we get you in the recording and that all the folks online can hear you. So we have 2 mic runners that will be happy to come over to you once they know you'd like to ask a question. To get us started, we do have a question that came in online, and this is for the whole panel. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen at Pratt & Whitney over your career? Dan, would you like to start us off?
No. I've been out for 25 years. So, give us a second here. Biggest change. I would say communication technology. And the idea that if I had someone working for me and they were on Zoom, the first thing I'd look for when I have a conversation, usually when you're a leader, conversations about trouble, not about parties. So the first thing when you ask someone a question, is the first thing they look at their shoes? You have nice shoes, by the way. So the shield, what I see as a shield, an electronic shield that comes from working at home is something I'm just too old. I'm 83 years old, so I came to Pratt when the 727 went into service. So it's unfair to criticize that technology. But you ask me, what was the biggest change? I would say the people you're talking to, you don't even know if they have pants on.
He doesn't have pants on, by the way. Underwear.
Only you'd know.
Yeah, I know. My amazement, or what hit me first, was demographics. Pratt & Whitney is turning into a diverse company.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's bad, given politics today. I personally think it's fantastic. I'm looking out at an audience right now that has...
Looks more like America.
It's many ages. I mean, what did we say that the average age at Pratt has turned into now? Isn't there something like a third of the workforce is now here less than 5 years? Is that correct?
37%, if I remember the number.
I mean, that's phenomenal. When I came here, everybody was old.
Exactly.
I was the young kid, you know. I was a young test engineer, you know.
Crew cuts and bow ties.
Exactly. And I look out and I see women.
Yeah. He always does.
And I no, but
be careful.
But what's important, I think, is that it's much more diverse, which is much better for the company.
Good point.
Right? I mean, you look around and you see people who look like you and who share the same experiences and ages and stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, you've got a lot less product to work with these days, but the point is, you're all in the same boat together and you're all recognizing each other and, as we've been saying, helping each other. So I think that the demographics, the diversity is absolutely wonderful. I would have loved it when I came in.
Good point.
But I do think a big change that helps all of us in this room, not so much me anymore, but is the standardization with process control. I don't know if you guys still use the term standard work, but having prescribed ways of how we do our jobs. And when you go, I've been consulting for the last few years, and when you go to other businesses, they don't have that structure. They don't know how to bring someone into an organization and quickly share with them the fundamentals that are required so they can do their job, but more effectively get to where the group has to go. And Pratt has that today, and that is a significant leverage that makes you who you are today.
I think if you take those three things and then you add in the acceleration into the digital design, digital architecture, electronic, as we talked about for digital proposals, that digitization, I guess that's not really a word, but that move into the digital to accelerate the work that Pratt has done. I think that's probably the biggest change that I've seen over the course of my time. When I started in 2015, so it hasn't been that long, but it's been a pretty amazing. I would call it truly a transformation.
Yeah, I started in grade school, so I was.
Sure,
Thank
you
you
guys
all.
got a
Do we have-
question. You got to have one.
Do we have a question in the room?
Yeah, lots of them.
While she's doing that, I'd like to make a comment. This is an incredible audience. Really.
Yeah, totally agree.
I've never seen so much attention dedicated by every individual, and I've watched every individual. I've never seen anything like it. This is a room full of high-powered people, and it's a great hope. That's it.
So back in the late 20th century, another technology, and I don't see the engine here today, was the unducted fan, like the Allison. So what was the attraction of those engines back in the day, and why didn't they catch on?
Well, it's fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
Noise is a problem with an unducted fan. It's being addressed with frequencies and what have you, but it's really fuel efficiency.
Especially cabin noise.
I used to like saying that, it's like blowing into a balloon. You make power with air and delta pressure. The more air you move, the more efficient the engine is. And those unducted fans move a boatload of air.
They also have concerns with the aircraft manufacturers. One is containment. Fan blades go, where do they go? Some of these things were hung on the back of the aircraft, some were hung under the wing, not good. Thrust reverse. These engines had to have variable pitch, right? Otherwise, you're not going to get thrust reverse. So either you develop aircraft braking technology to convince people you don't need thrust reversers anymore. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Aircraft manufacturers want thrust reversers. So there are technical issues that, for instance, when IE did the superfan, the variable pitch mechanism just scared the heck out of people. How does that going to work? What are we going to do for thrust reverse?
Swiss watch.
So those technical issues. The problem was it confused everything in the time frame that GE was proposing the UDF. It sort of said, well, what's the next generation of aircraft going to look like? Well, as it turns out, the next generation of aircraft is what you guys are doing. It's the very high bypass ratio geared fan. And it took a long time to get the industry to sign up for that. So I think it's going to take much longer for the industry to sign up for any UDF or anything like that.
Spencer Cianciolo, model-based definition quality. Wanted to thank you all for your time today, but also I had a question for Mike. So you talked a lot about change management and leading a diverse team. So I just wanted to know, how did you keep the motivation and the momentum going during that time for your team, working with such a diverse group to achieve your goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll tell you, talk about persistence. It's constant, especially for a new organization when you bring everybody together that come from different places and you try to build this organizational esprit de corps. And it starts with, I think, from the top down and the bottom up and meeting in the middle, building that trust that I talked about between the team, across the team. And so we did a lot of social events. We did a lot of social events together, both with families, and we did, even during the week, we'd always have at least one of the cells. So the estimators, we'd have we'd have lunch. The leadership would have lunch with the estimators, and the next week we would have lunch with, or we'd have an hour-long session with government, with the pricing team, and it goes back to that human-to-human communication, the relationships, but it also want to make sure that that the team has the opportunity to talk to the leadership and truly tell them what the challenges are. So not the I'm fine, it's all good. We're the metrics are good. It's like, hey boss, we worked over Thanksgiving because we had to get the proposal out, and we lost 5 days while everybody else was enjoying the time. What can you do? Well, Pratt doesn't do comp time, but you know what? You're not doing any proposals. Take some time with your family, and if we need you, we'll call you, but we're not going to need you. So you've got to find over and over and over. You have to find ways to bring the team together. And then once you've got that cohesive team with the trust and confidence between them, now you can start to build it outward so that the team, when they go out and talk with the programs, for example, when the base team goes out to talk with the programs, they know that they go knowing that the rest of the team is behind them, right? It's the same way with the customers. When the proposal team, the proposal lead, deputy lead, and the core proposal teams meeting with the customer, that you can feel it. You can feel the trust and the true collegial belief that the team is all together in this for success.
Hi, Brian Easton, F-117 Program Office. I loved hearing a lot of the things you guys talked about, the challenges you went through, and I think a lot of us are here because these challenges are interesting. Overcome these challenges is kind of what we do, what we thrive for. And I think it was funny listening to Dan and Steve because the first thing that happened this morning at my desk was the material manager for our group walked up, and right away, some words came out of my mouth because I knew what was going to happen or what the conversation was going to be. So, and I want to put in perspective for some of the younger people because, there are tough days and there are good days that we have. So I wanted kind of each of you to talk about what was your worst day at Pratt & Whitney and what was your best day?
Well, I think that, we'll go down the line here. I think for me it was reduction in force days. Having to separate people that you've known for a long time and having a boss who was always on vacation when those days came around. So I think that without question, those were the most difficult days. Every other day for 37 years, I loved driving through that fence every single day. Even though it was hard. I mean, some things are harder than others, but a reduction in force was heartbreaking.
Well, I think it's hard to say because I'm with Dan. I just loved working in this place. It was my only post-college job I ever had. And it was a fantastic experience. I never stayed in any one position or place too long. I moved 13 times in 14 years. There are so many opportunities within Pratt & Whitney, moving from customer support to sales and marketing to engineering to advanced programs to, you have experiences throughout the company that, in my mind, try to experience as many of them as you can. Even working in financial, which I can't say was a great time, but okay, you got the experience. I think the worst day was probably when I told the president of the company that he screwed up. That was,
I was hoping
that wasn't smart.
it was.
And that was when I was in a management development program, which I was in with Dan, which was headed for executive positions. So you go through this program and supposedly coming out of it, you have the opportunity. Well, I knew at that point that my chance of becoming an executive was not very good.
You showed them.
So there was a lesson learned there about speaking your mind and how you speak your mind as to what you think the right thing to do is and whether somebody's making a mistake. So that was a good lessons learned, but that was not a good day, especially when the Executive Vice President Pratt came into my office and gave me the bad news, you're going to Siberia, you know, that which was, again, another great experience. My best day, if I really were put up against the wall, I think it was when I became president of IAE. IAE was a unique program at Pratt & Whitney because as the president of IAE, you ran the whole program. You were responsible for sales, strategy, customer support, product support, finance. You had a P&L. You ran a company within Pratt & Whitney as president of IAE. And the people at IAE are what we've been talking about. They were fantastically dedicated, high energy, empowered people. And when I got there as president, I said, here's my #1 objective for the whole company. I want you who work here to feel this is the best place you've ever worked. That's the environment we need to set here at IAE. And that wasn't easy because there was a lot of pressure from shareholders because I became president during 9/11, and those were not good times when the aviation industry essentially shut down for 6 months because of that event. So our shareholders, especially Rolls-Royce, were all over us about selling engines and spare parts and keeping up their profit plans. So that job at IE to me was fantastic. I loved every minute of it.
You know, at least for me, there's a lot of bad days, right? I'm not sure if I have what my worst bad day is, but it's like being on a professional sports team. You're not going to win every game. So you have to recognize that you're going to lose a game. You know, not putting a wide body, you know, making an engine for the 787. That was a really devastating day for people who were in the commercial business, right? Now you can let that crush you, right? And if you're a person that the glass is half empty, and you stay with that mentality, your ability to solve the next problem or the next challenge they were giving is tough because you're working in that negative environment. So, but those are going to happen, and you're just going to recognize that you can't have 365 good days. But when you have those good days, like the first day that demo engine ran in West Palm Beach, I mean, we had the test engineer on a cell phone. The engine's at idle, and he's on a cell phone, and he's talking to us. That's how quiet the engine was. I mean, you wouldn't imagine what that did to the team for morale building, right? Those good days, you got to cherish them, and you're going to have a lot of those good days, but you can't let the bad days take you down. You got to get yourself above that.
And that's pretty much a hard act to follow. I'll tell you, I came to Pratt & Whitney after I retired from the U.S. Air Force because Pratt & Whitney was had the closest culture and values to my beloved United States Air Force. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. That defines Pratt & Whitney just as it does the U.S. Air Force. So having almost every day was a good day with little bad things that happened along the way. But the one thing that really sticks out is against all odds in a competition with GE where we had lost F-100, in an F-100 campaign, we had lost like, I don't know, 6 or 7 straight. We won the campaign for additional Moroccan F-16s. They picked the F-100. And they picked the F-100 because their F-100 fleet that they had already was powered by Pratt & Whitney. And they said, despite the fact that GE is less expensive, you treat us like partners, not as customers. So that win was probably the biggest and, not biggest, but it was one of those days that stands out as the reason why we all work or have worked at Pratt & Whitney.
Thank you all for those answers. We do have one question that we'd like to end with for tonight. How do you recommend dealing with the stress or doubts that may come with a new job?
I start with a prayer. Divine intervention goes a long way. But no, it's tough. I mean, you know, you're always challenged, and especially, I think, when you go from being considered an expert. I remember, you know, I was in engineering for the first 12 years of my career here, and then they put me into marketing. I mean, putting an engineer
great job.
in a marketing position, right? And I really felt like I was a fish out of water, right? But what they were looking for was not to be a salesman, but to know how to present what we do and how we do it and the value of what we do to a customer. And so, although you really feel uneasy in saying, I can't market, I'm not a seller, I'm an introvert normally, that job made me be an extrovert, you know? And so I went from my closed environment and forced me to do something that was outside of my nature. But with time, you get there. It doesn't happen easy, but as Mike said during his presentation, change is hard, and we all resist change. But change grows. So if you don't take the change, you don't grow. Anyway.
I'll give you an image that you might find useful. I learned it playing baseball, or attempting to. When you're really stressed or insecure, is probably a better word, is get your uniform dirty. Just get your uniform dirty. Get out there. It's a contact sport, right? and it's encouraged by the way we evaluate people to some extent. Not that I know how to do it any better, but when you group people and then quote, I don't know if you still do it anymore, stack people, you get some kind of relative comparison among a small group of people. But that's not, relativism doesn't make the world go around. Absolute does. And all those people that are nervous and competitive are stressed out because of that process. I don't have an answer for that. But if you're a leader, don't worry about that. Worry about absolute value. And if you have nervous and stressed people, and you better have, tell them to get the uniform dirty. Just get dirty. Go get hurt. Rub a little dirt on it. Put some ice on it. Come back. That sounds crude and insensitive. But use the sports analogy. Say, just get dirty. Just go get dirty. Make a mistake. And if you tell them that, they'll be, oh, okay. Maybe. I mean, some people can't be saved. But 99.9% can be. And it's insignificant to people that can't be saved. Get dirty.
So in my 34-year Air Force career, we moved 22 times. So 22 different jobs. And when I was a captain, so I'd been in the Air Force for about 6 or 7 years, I had a sage, you know, what I considered old, probably, you know, a 35, 40-year-old lieutenant colonel pulled me aside and he said, all right, so I was getting ready to go to my next assignment, and he said, Moeller, just remember, bloom where you're planted, and everything will be okay. Learn as much as you can. It's a great opportunity. And if you bloom where you're planted, the next place that you go to will be better, bigger, and even more challenging, and I bet you'll bloom again. So that's that mentoring advice stayed with me now for over 40 years.
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask that question. I never held the same position at Pratt & Whitney for more than 4 years. That's the amount of moving around I did. One thing that helped all the way through it, though, was I was very lucky to have mentors. And I don't know if you've started that or thinking about that, but I was very, very lucky to have some really good mentors to go to provide advice to me. Rob's dad was one of them. Nick Tomasetti, Jill, Nick, you're here. He was a huge mentor of mine. Almost everywhere I went, there was a mentor, and then there was a mentor who was continuous, who would kind of tell me, you know, you kind of need to go do this now. You need to get this experience. You need to try this. And you know, there were failures. Like I said, I didn't get the V on the 737, but it was an experience that fortunately I had mentors to discuss it with and fall back on. So I think, especially if you're just starting out your career, finding a mentor or more than one, and being open to change, in what you're doing, what you think your future might be. I think that's critical, and that's just good advice anywhere, right? That's kind of good advice, I think, for any kind of business you're in or what you plan to do. And you know what? If you don't like what you're doing, don't be afraid to leave. Yeah. Don't be afraid to go try a new job. There's lots of them just within this company alone. I mean, I worked for Pratt & Whitney for 34 years, and it's the only company I worked for 34 years. But I never had a feeling that I was getting stale in the job that I was doing. So that's kind of what I recommend.
If you're not having fun, you might be doing it wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Part of that.
Thank you all very much.